Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. Welcome on into today's FreightWaves Now Community Spotlight. I'm Kaylee Nix, and we are here with the one and only Thomas Wasson, talking about Loaded and Rolling, the only newsletter in the FreightWaves ecosystem where you can find everything you need to know about, what is it? Big fleets, small fleets, and small fleets that wish to be big fleets?
You got it. You nailed it.
There you go. All right, Thomas. And you got you had a pretty busy week. You're a busy man. Talk to us a little bit about what's going on.
I got around this week. That's right. I was so I first started with a webinar. I knew the folks at Optum. We had Dean Crowe, Zach Strickland, David with Rive Logistics, and we had the whole gang together talking about market insights. What does the market mean? And it was a really fun talk. I think one of the big things is that, everyone's asking, when's this going to change? When's this market going to change? And what is this market? How's it been different than other years? So it was fascinating because I think there's a few theories. I want to focus on the theories we're trying to chew through. Mm-hmm. One of them is, why is it that there's still so much trucking capacity? And how has it been like it's not corrected itself as fast? And one of the things we're thinking is technology's impact, because not only are the carriers getting smarter, they're using technology to stick around for longer, but we've also had a situation where brokerages are getting more access to freight to fuel those carriers. So for longer strides. And then finally, there's a fascinating one Dean talked about. He talked to some drivers, and he said how some of them have kind of turned into a Landstar thing. Driver behavior has changed to where they'll work 8 months, go off 4. They're getting more picky in spite of the market. There's more flexibility and capacity because recently, for every 10 carriers that have left, 8 have shown back up.
Huh. That's something I think that is worth a little bit of a zoom in, right? Because it's really contradictory. You're being picky about your freight and the loads that you take, despite the fact that the market is the way that it is. What's the rationale there, or is there one that exists?
I think it's like, timing to jump back in. That's what's interesting. This market has been so crappy for so long. My theory is, my gut tells me that the reason we're seeing a higher amount of entrants in spite of exits are those people who, just like they overbought in the pandemic, they jumped in too late. We're seeing the ones jumping in too early because truck prices are down like 20% on used trucks. So everyone's thinking like, oh, I think I can. Because what you want to do is, if the goal is to jump in right before it goes up, then you make a lot more money before everyone else catches on. So I'm starting to think we're seeing that, in the technology and media landscape for freight has changed so dramatically that there's all this noise and data coming in that we're seeing this dynamic market where in the past, when I started out at US Express, I was lucky to get a transport topics that was a quarter old.
Ooh.
And it'd be on a desk, and I'd take it from a VP and I'd try to read it like some forbidden knowledge.
Hey, head on over to sonar.com to find that real-time data, subtle plug.
We had, we actually finally, when US Express got a Sonar subscription, they gave us a free monitor. And it was like that scene in 2001 Space Odyssey where the monkeys are on the monolith. Yeah. Everyone's like dancing. And that was what the Sonar was. We all crowded around the VP's table because he had the subscription. We're like, what is this? It's like, oh, it's new data. And we're like, oh, It's just,
all hail the magic conch is what it was like. And and speaking of Sonar and speaking of Dean Crowe, who is of course with DAT, this is again that not so subtle plug for you guys to go register for the future of supply chain, because coming up in like 3 weeks, we're going to have a head-to-head battle of Zach Strickland, our Sultan of Sonar, against one of those fine folks from DAT. So it's something that you don't want to miss. You can do that by joining us in Atlanta for the future of supply chain. Tickets over on live.freightwaves.com. And Thomas, if I'm not mistaken, you still have a discount code that is rolling out until the end of this month.
They are. You'll find them in the Loaded and Rolling newsletter, freightwaves.com/loaded and rolling. I've got the little banner. It'll take you to the discount code. Our communities all have them, so keep an eye out for those. We have the codes that'll save you money. You want to show up to this event. Zach got warmed up. He was moderating this webinar, and so for Ken Adamo, you got to watch out. It's like Tyson showing those videos. He's getting ready.
Yeah, it's all gloves off, no holds barred battle of the data giants. So we'll see you there in Atlanta. Thomas, let's talk about some other things that came up this week. You had a really good episode of Loaded and Rolling with a really great group.
I had Quick Q's Rich Todd, Vice President of Sales. Really awesome guy. It's a really good interview. You don't want to miss it. It's on demand, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, talking about fuel fraud, RFID technologies. And it was such a great one because you can find out not only how fraud's happening, but how important it is to prevent it. Because for fleets, what typically happens is you don't notice it until it really screws up. And then it's really a problem that has to be fixed now.
It's one of those things where it's like a single grain of sand doesn't look like it's that big of a deal until the entire pile comes crashing down on you, right? And it's like fraud can come in a lot of different forms when it comes to these fuel cards and payments fraud and purchasing fraud. What were some of the examples that you guys used?
Some of the fascinating ones is their RFID technology does a great job at trying to prevent what I used to, the equivalent of buying the rounds. So imagine that you're a fraudster, you swipe the card, you want to buy the whole gas station or fueling station rounds because they'll try to use them at multiple points. So that was the first one. The second one is give your old buddy a discount where another truck is there, you use your fuel card, you pull up, they pull up and fuel at it, and you're basically taking cash, but you're charging the company. So you're making money off of the differences. And with the RFID tech, you have the indicators to where as soon as you pull forward, that transaction's done.
Right.
So it's doing a great job because with the skimming capabilities now, you can get skimmed in Omaha, Nebraska, and within the same day start getting charges in Atlanta and Phoenix.
Wow.
So you have to have things in there to catch it. And a lot of people get busy. Small fleets, 5-10 trucks. The owner frequently drives. It'll slip through the cracks like termites until it's too late.
And a driver oftentimes isn't taking the time to look for a skimmer or to work really hard at that gas station. And as we all know, it's a very effective way of fraud. Let's finish off by talking about the newsletter coming out this week. That, of course, will be this afternoon. Where can people find that? And what are you talking about?
They want to find it first, FreightWaves.com/loaded and rolling. A lot of good stuff. I'm going to throw in some thoughts. Cass released some recent data. Looking at the market, we're seeing it's a CVSA road check week. So let's see what's going on in the marketplace with that. And we're just diving in. I found some really interesting stuff, and you may see this on my socials as well if you're good listeners. The impact of EVs and how large fleets are still very skeptical on it. Trucking Dive did a really good piece. They're digging through the earnings calls, talking about how Knight Swift was like, man, I only get $40,000 in discounts, but it's $200,000 to $100,000 more. So $200 to $300 more, I only get 40 off, and I can only go 160 miles right now because of the weight. So long haul, not happening yet, but for the short hauls on the drayage, the alternate fuels is looking more attractive because you have less distance to travel.
It's like the opposite of girl math right there. Well, Thomas, for the folks who want to get the podcast in, then the show, where can they go to find that?
Loaded and rolling, type it in, FreightWaves, type it in. If you want to see some of the stuff I wrote with QuickQ as well. Just Google Thomas Wasson. I've got it under there, combating fuel pump fraud. It's really good stuff. So if you want to find it, check us out, subscribe, like it, put it in your inbox. It's good knowledge.
And we'll see you next week.